There are certain movies that just hit you differently depending on where you are in your life. And Silver Linings Playbook, that's one of those movies for me. I remember watching this movie during a time in my life when I was going through something that, honestly, was kind of eerily similar to what Pat was going through. I was dealing with a girl I couldn't get over. And when I say I couldn't get over her, I mean, I really couldn't. I thought about her constantly. I replayed old conversations in my head. I'd think about what I could have done differently. And if I'm being honest, part of me still believed that if I could just become a better version of myself, maybe she'd come back. Maybe she'd see me differently. And maybe she'd realize she'd made a mistake. And eventually, that just broke me. So when I watched Pat, I understood something about him. Because we first meet him, he's just gotten out of a psychiatric hospital. His marriage is over, but Pat doesn't really believe it's over. He believes he can fix it. And as we follow his story, we start to see something that I think a lot of us can relate to. The difference between wanting someone back and actually moving forward. And I think there's a lesson here about heartbreak, dating, confidence, and becoming the best version of yourself that a lot of us need to hear. I want to show you why. When we first meet Pat, he's coming home after spending months in the hospital. He's trying to get his life back together. He's running, he's working out, he's trying to control his anger. He's trying to become more positive. But there's one thing underneath all of it. Nikki, his wife. Pat is convinced that if he can become a better man, if he can get himself together, he can prove that he's changed. Then Nikki's gonna come back. And that's something I understood immediately, because I remember doing my own version of that. I wasn't running through the neighborhood trying to win somebody back. But mentally, I was doing exactly that. I was constantly thinking about what I could have done differently, what I should have said, what I shouldn't have said. And I think that's one of the hardest parts about heartbreak. You don't just miss the person, you miss the future you thought you were going to have with them. That's what took me a long time to understand. I wasn't just missing her, I was missing the life I had imagined, the things I thought we were going to do, the person I thought I was going to become. And when all that disappeared, I didn't really know what to do with myself. And that's where Pat is. He's not just trying to get Nikki back, he's trying to get his old life back. He's trying to go back to a version of himself that doesn't exist anymore. And then Tiffany comes into his life. And she's almost the complete opposite of what Pat thinks he wants. She's complicated, she's dealing with her own pain, she's unpredictable, and she definitely doesn't have everything figured out. But somehow, she understands Pat, and she sees something that he doesn't quite see yet. He's still completely focused on Nikki. So Tiffany makes him a deal. She'll help him get a letter to Nikki if he'll partner with her for a dance competition. And Pat agrees. But here's the funny part. He's not really doing the dance for Tiffany. He's doing it for Nikki. He thinks this is going to be another way to prove that he's changed, that he's disciplined, that he's committed, that he's becoming the man Nikki wants. So they start practicing. And at first, really it's just a transaction. Pat wants something from Tiffany, Tiffany wants something from Pat. But then, something starts happening. They run together. They practice together. They even argue. They laugh. And they annoy each other. And slowly, they start becoming comfortable around each other. I think that's one of the first things this movie gets right about relationships. Sometimes you don't fall for somebody because they check every box. Sometimes you fall for somebody because they actually see you. And Pat and Tiffany spend enough time together that they can't really hide from each other. They see the good parts, they see the ugly parts, they see the emotional parts. And little by little, something real starts developing, even though Pat isn't really ready to admit it, because he's still waiting for Nikki. He receives a letter that he believes is from her, and that letter gives him exactly what he wants: hope. Hope that maybe the relationship isn't really over. Hope that maybe, if he proves himself, he can get his old life back. And I think that's where heartbreak can get dangerous, because hope is a beautiful thing. But sometimes, hope can keep you stuck. You can spend months or even years waiting for a person to come back, waiting for an apology, waiting for another chance, waiting for the version of the relationship you remember. And while you're waiting, your own life is passing you by. That's something I had to learn myself when I was going through my own situation. I wanted to become better. I wanted to grow. But if I'm being completely honest, part of me wanted her to see it. I wanted her to look at me and think, maybe I made a mistake. And eventually I realized that's not really freedom. Because if I'm improving myself just so somebody else will notice, they still have power over me, even if they're not in my life anymore. So eventually I had to change the reason. I'm not going to become better so she regrets losing me. I'm going to become better because I don't want to lose myself again. And that's where Tiffany becomes so important to Pat's story, because she's not really interested in the version of Pat he's trying to sell to Nikki. She's getting to know the actual Pat, the emotional Pat, the stubborn Pat, the complicated Pat, the guy who doesn't have everything figured out yet. And the more time they spend together, the harder it becomes for Pat to ignore what's happening between them. But he's still holding on to Nikki because he's still convinced that's where his happiness is. And then we get the dance. And I love the dance scenes because they're almost a metaphor for what happens between Pat and Tiffany. At first, they're awkward. They don't really know how to move together. They get frustrated. They mess up. But they keep practicing. And eventually, they start moving together. It's not perfect, but it works. And maybe that's what a relationship actually is. Not two perfect people who never get in each other's way. Two people who learn how to move together. Meanwhile, Pat's entire family is caught up in this crazy Eagles obsession. His dad believes Pat is his good luck charm. There's betting, there's football, there's all this chaos surrounding the family. And underneath all of it, Pat is changing. Not necessarily in the way he intended. He's becoming more connected to people. He's becoming more comfortable with Tiffany. He's becoming more present. And maybe that's the part he doesn't realize yet. He's getting better. But not because Nikki is watching. Because Tiffany is. And then Pat discovers something about the letter. There's a phrase in it that Tiffany uses. And he suddenly realizes she wrote it. She was the one who sent it. And suddenly, the hope he's been holding on to gets complicated. Because now he's realizing that Tiffany has been trying to push him in a direction he wasn't ready to go. He's angry, he's confused, but even after everything, there's still something between them. And then we get to the competition, and this is where the entire movie starts coming together. Nikki is there, Tiffany sees her, and you can immediately see what that does to Tiffany, because she's fallen for Pat, and she knows exactly how Nikki is. She's the woman Pat has spent this entire movie trying to get back. So now Tiffany's watching the possibility of losing him happen right in front of her. Then they have to dance. And I think the scene is one of the most important scenes in the movie, because look at where Pat started. At the beginning, he was running alone, obsessed with Nikki, trying to get his old life back. Now he's standing on a dance floor with Tiffany, the person he never expected to become important to him. And they're dancing. They're nervous. They're imperfect. They're not professional dancers, clearly. They're just two people who spent all this time learning how to move together, and somehow it works. They get the score they needed, Everybody celebrates. For a moment, everything seems perfect. But then Pat sees Nikki. And this is where everything changes because Nikki represents everything Pat thought he wanted: his old life, his old relationship, the future he had imagined. And now she's standing right in front of him. He has the opportunity to go back, but Tiffany is gone. And suddenly, Pat realizes he doesn't want to lose her. And that's the moment that really gets me, because sometimes you don't realize what you actually have until you see yourself about to lose it. Pat finally understands that Tiffany wasn't just helping him get Nikki back. She was the person who had been there while he was becoming himself again. She had seen him when he was messy. She challenged him. She argued with him. She laughed with him. She believed in him. And somewhere along the way, he fell in love with her. And that's why I don't think this movie is simply about Pat choosing Tiffany over Nikki. I think it's about Pat finally choosing reality over fantasy. Nikki represents the future he had created in his head. Tiffany represents the person actually standing in front of him. And I think that's a lesson that applies way beyond this movie. Because how many times do we do that? We create this perfect version of someone in our head. We remember the best moments. We imagine what could have been. We convince ourselves that if we could just get another chance, everything would be different. But sometimes, we're not actually in love with the person anymore. We're in love with the possibility of what the relationship could have been. And that's what took me a long time to understand about my own situation. I thought I needed that girl back. I thought getting her back would make everything feel right again. But eventually, I had to realize she couldn't give me back the version of myself I'd lost. I had to find him myself. And that's where that word comes back. Excelsior. Ever upward. At first, the word almost seems like a joke. It's part of Pat's family's personality. His dad is obsessed with finding the silver lining in everything. But by the end of the movie, it means something different. Because Pat has been knocked down. He's lost his marriage. He's lost control of his life. He spent months trying to put himself back together. He's been completely obsessed with somebody who isn't coming back. And yet, he keeps moving. He keeps running. He keeps practicing. He keeps trying. He keeps getting back up. And maybe that's what the silver lining really is. Maybe it's not that everything suddenly becomes perfect. Maybe it's not that the person who hurt you comes back. Maybe it's not that you never struggle again. Maybe the silver lining is who you become because you went through it. And that's where I think this movie becomes bigger than just a love story. Because we've all had something that knocked us down. Maybe it was a breakup. Maybe it was rejection. Maybe it was losing someone you thought would always be there. And when you're in the middle of it, you don't see the lesson. You just feel the pain. I know I did. When I was going through what I was going through, I wasn't thinking about what I was going to learn from it. I just wanted it to stop hurting. But eventually, I realized I had a choice. I could spend the rest of my life trying to get back what I'd lost, or I could start building something new. And I think that's what Pat eventually does. He doesn't become perfect. He doesn't forget Nikki. He doesn't suddenly become a completely different person. He just moves forward. And maybe that's what becoming the best version of yourself really means. Not becoming perfect. Not becoming the man every woman wants. Becoming the man you respect. The man who can love somebody without losing himself. And the man who can get his heart broken without becoming bitter. The man who can lose someone and still get back up. And if you're watching this right now, and there's somebody you still can't get over, I'm not going to tell you to just move on. I know it doesn't work that way. If it mattered to you, course it hurts. If you love them, of course you miss them. And if you imagine a future with them, of course losing that future feels like losing something real. But I want you to remember something. You didn't lose everything. You lost something. And those aren't the same thing. You still have your life. You still have time. You still have dreams. You still have the opportunity to become somebody you're proud of. And maybe right now, you don't see the silver lining. That's okay. You don't have to see it yet. You just have to keep moving. Because eventually, you may look back at the thing that broke your heart and realize it didn't destroy you. It introduced you to a version of yourself you hadn't met yet. A stronger version, a wiser version, a more honest version, a version that doesn't need to be chosen by somebody else. Because he's finally learned how to choose himself. That's what Excelsior means to me now. Ever upward. You fall, you get back up. You lose someone, you find yourself, and you make a mistake, and you learn. You don't get the ending that you wanted, and you keep writing the story. And maybe the person you couldn't get over wasn't the end of your story. Maybe they were just a chapter. Maybe the relationship that broke you was also the relationship that taught you something about yourself. Losing someone was the beginning of finding yourself. Because becoming the best version of yourself isn't about becoming the man every woman wants. It's about becoming the man you respect. The man who can love deeply without losing himself. The man who can get his heart broken without letting it make him bitter. The man who can lose someone and still choose to keep moving forward. The man who can get knocked down and get back up. Excelsior. Ever upward. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like the video and subscribe to The Gentleman's Project for more honest conversations about dating, confidence, and becoming the best version of yourself. And let me ask you this. Have you ever had someone in your life that you thought you couldn't get over, only to eventually realize that losing them was part of finding yourself again? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.